In the frozen silence of a Siberian winter, something fell from the sky that would defy every explanation science could offer. It did not simply crash. It did not simply burn. According to the herders who found it, it sang. This is the story of the Sky Stone, a meteorite unlike any other ever recovered on Earth. A rock older than our solar system's youngest planets, marked with lines that should not exist, carved by a hand that should not have been there to carve them. Welcome to a mystery that has quietly divided scientists, obsessed codebreakers, and convinced more than one government agency to seal its files. The year was 1947. A small nomadic community in the Tunguska region of Siberia, already infamous for a mysterious explosion decades earlier, reported a second event. Witnesses described a streak of blue-white light crossing the sky at an unnatural, almost deliberate speed, followed by a low humming tone that some said they felt in their teeth before they heard it in their ears. When search parties reached the impact site 3 days later, they found no crater, no scorched earth, no fragments scattered across the tundra the way a typical meteorite strike would produce. Instead, resting gently atop the snow, as if it had been placed rather than dropped, was a single stone roughly the size of a large dog, dark as obsidian, and warm to the touch despite the sub-zero temperatures. It should have been impossible. Meteorites entering Earth's atmosphere endure friction so violent it either vaporizes them or leaves them fractured, blackened, and cooling rapidly once they land. This one showed almost none of the expected scarring. Its surface was smooth, geometrically patterned, and, most disturbing of all, etched with lines too precise, too deliberate, to be the product of natural stress fractures or atmospheric ablation. When researchers finally photographed the stone's surface in detail, what they documented sent a quiet shockwave through the small circle of scientists who saw it first. The markings were not random. They were not the chaotic scarring of heat and pressure. They formed rows. Repeating symbols. Patterns that echoed themselves at intervals, almost like a sentence structure, as though something, somewhere, had wanted this message to be read rather than simply observed. Some of the symbols bore an eerie resemblance to spiral galaxies. Others appeared to map clusters of dots that, when compared against known star charts, seemed to loosely align with the positions of certain stars, not as they appear today, but as they may have appeared thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, of years in the past. Geologists who examined thin sections of the stone under a microscope reported something even stranger. The internal composition contained isotopic ratios inconsistent with any known meteorite classification: chondrite, achondrite, iron, or stony iron. Trace elements appeared in a distribution that some researchers described as engineered rather than naturally occurring, though this claim remains fiercely disputed by mainstream planetary scientists. For nearly 2 decades, the stone passed through the hands of a small, secretive group of researchers, most working outside the boundaries of official state science programs. Linguists, cryptographers, and even a handful of mathematicians were consulted. Each brought their own framework, their own assumptions, and each walked away with a different partial answer. One cryptographer, working from a smuggled photograph of the carvings in the 1960s, proposed that the repeating symbol clusters followed a mathematical progression similar to prime number sequences, a method some scientists have long theorized would be the most logical way for an alien intelligence to signal awareness of universal constants, since prime numbers exist independent of any language or culture. Another researcher, a Soviet-trained astrophysicist, argued the carvings were not a language at all, but a star map, a navigational marker, perhaps left behind to indicate a point of origin, or a path home. A third theory, quieter but more unsettling, suggested the markings were not meant for us at all. That the stone was never designed to be found by humanity, that we were, in this theory, an unintended audience to a message meant for something else entirely. Then, in the early 1970s, the stone vanished from public record. Officially, it was transferred to a research facility for further geological analysis. Unofficially, those who had worked closely with the original research team say the stone was quietly absorbed into a classified program, its documentation scattered across multiple agencies to obscure its origin and significance. For over 20 years, no photographs surfaced. No papers were published. Researchers who once spoke openly about the discovery grew reluctant to discuss it at all. One geologist, interviewed decades later for a documentary that was ultimately never aired, would only say that some things get found, and some things get buried twice, once by the Earth, and once by whoever comes after. It wasn't until the collapse of the Soviet Union that fragments of the original research began to leak into international academic circles. Declassified, or perhaps simply forgotten, documents referencing Object Category 7 described a stone matching every known detail of the original Tunguska find. Independent researchers who obtained copies of the old photographs subjected the carvings to modern computational analysis, running the symbol patterns through algorithms designed to detect linguistic structure in unknown scripts, the same class of software later used in attempts to decode ancient undeciphered writing systems. The results were, once again, inconclusive, but tantalizing. The symbol clusters showed a statistical regularity consistent with meaningful information, rather than the random noise one would expect from natural weathering or coincidental fracture patterns. Whatever created these marks, the analysis suggested, was not chaos. It followed rules. Of course, no mystery survives without its skeptics, and in this case, their arguments deserve to be heard in full. Mainstream planetary geologists point out that meteorites regularly display natural fracture patterns that can appear deceptively ordered to the untrained eye, a phenomenon known as pareidolia, where the human brain instinctively seeks patterns, faces, and language even in random noise. Cooling stresses, mineral banding, and pre-existing fractures in the parent asteroid body can all produce lines that look designed without any intelligence behind them at all. Critics also note the troubling absence of a verifiable chain of custody. No peer-reviewed institution has ever conducted an independently verified, transparent analysis of the original stone. Photographs alone, however striking, cannot substitute for hands-on scientific scrutiny, isotopic dating, and open publication. Extraordinary claims, as the saying goes, require extraordinary evidence, and a legend built largely on second-hand photographs and second-hand testimony falls well short of that bar. And yet, the story persists. Not because it has been proven, but because it has never quite been disproven either. This is the question that haunts every researcher who has ever chased this story. Some believe the sky stone still sits in a climate-controlled vault, quietly studied by a handful of scientists bound by non-disclosure agreements. Others believe it was lost entirely, misplaced in the chaotic transfer of Soviet-era scientific assets during the 1990s, when countless classified projects were abandoned, defunded, or simply forgotten in the scramble of a collapsing government. A smaller, more provocative theory holds that the stone was never lost at all, that its disappearance from public record was deliberate, a decision made not to protect national security in the traditional sense, but to prevent global panic over what its message might truly represent, should it ever be fully decoded. Whether the sky stone signal is genuine evidence of contact, an elaborate misunderstanding of natural geological processes, or something invented and embellished across decades of retelling, it forces us to sit with a bigger question, one that has occupied philosophers and astronomers alike for generations. If intelligent life elsewhere in the universe wanted to leave a message, how would we ever recognize it? Would it come wrapped in radio waves, as most search programs assume? Or could it arrive quietly, embedded in stone, riding the ancient debris of a solar system far older than our own, waiting patiently for a species curious enough, and patient enough, to notice the difference between a scar and a signature? In recent years, a new generation of researchers has picked up where the old files left off. Armed with satellite archive access, multispectral imaging techniques, and AI-assisted pattern recognition, a handful of independent teams have attempted to reconstruct the sky stone's markings purely from the surviving photographs, grainy, incomplete, and decades old as they are. Some of this modern work has focused on the spacing between symbol clusters, testing whether the intervals correspond to any known mathematical constant. Other efforts have tried cross-referencing the starlight dot patterns against ancient sky charts, hunting for a moment in history when the arrangement described on the stone would have actually matched the night sky above Earth. None of this has produced a smoking gun. But it has kept the case alive in a way few 40-year-old rumors ever manage, passed not through tabloids, but through peer-to-peer forums of amateur astronomers, retired cryptographers, and a small but devoted community of researchers who simply refuse to let the question go unanswered. Because that, in the end, may be the truest legacy of the sky stone. Not proof. Not disproved. Just a question sturdy enough to survive 50 years of silence, secrecy, and skepticism, still waiting for someone to answer it for good. Maybe the sky stone is nothing more than an unusual rock and an extraordinary story that grew larger with every retelling. Or maybe, somewhere in a forgotten vault, a message older than human civilization is still waiting for someone to finish reading it. Until that day comes, the stone keeps its silence. And so, for now, must we? If you enjoyed uncovering this mystery with us, make sure to subscribe, and let us know in the comments below, do you think the sky stone signal was ever real?